So this question, two part one, is a required practical question. So by all means, learn the required practicals to get most marks on this question and these questions. But even if you don't know this experiment, doesn't mean that you can't get a fair amount of marks just from reading and understanding the question. It says you're changing the mass of sodium carbonate powder, and you're investigating how changing the mass of sodium carbonate powder will affect the highest temperature reached. So you're going to change. So really, you want to write something along the lines of, I'm going to change the mass of sodium carbonate powder. So mass of, this is sodium carbonate here. And then this is the highest temperature. So if you just said, I'm going to change the mass of sodium carbonate and then measure the highest temperature in each case, and then plot the results, that's probably going to get you 1 or 2 marks there. But we could probably do a bit better than this. How would we make sure that we're measuring the highest temperature? Well, we're probably going to keep our thermometer in the reaction, in the test tube or whatever it is that we're doing the experiment, and we're going to keep looking at it until it stops rising. And at the point it stops rising, that is what our highest temperature is. So that'll probably, saying something like that will probably get us an extra mark. What else do we want to say? We want to be talking about our control variables. All this stuff here that I'm talking about right now is things that I could say which would get me marks without knowing anything about this experiment. Because it tells me that I'm measuring how this will affect that. So I'm changing this and I'm measuring that. So I now just need to think of what other things would affect the highest temperature reached. And I want to make sure I don't change those things. So we've got the sodium carbonate reacting with hydrochloric acid. I want to keep the same volume of hydrochloric acid. Clearly, if I had more hydrochloric acid or less hydrochloric acid, it's going to change how the reaction occurs. What else do I want to do? Well, I want to. I probably want to think about how I can make sure that the heat doesn't escape the container that I'm keeping it in. So, could I pour acid into some sort of insulated container? I need to know that the insulated container is not going to be melted by the acid. So this one's a bit of a guess, but a polystyrene cup is the one that's suggested in the March scheme, and the advantage of using the polystyrene cup is you're not going to lose that much heat through it. So as the temperature increases, you're not going to lose the heat as it escapes from the container as quickly as it would if it was in like a glass beaker. What about changing the mass? How do I go about changing the mass? Well, I need to measure it and increase it. Maybe I could increase it by, maybe I want to state the amounts. So I could go for 2 grams, 4 grams, 6 grams, whatever. I could start writing stuff like that. How am I going to measure it? You measure it with a balance. That's the name of the equipment you use to measure the mass of something. Okay. Again, this is nothing specific to this practical, but you do need to know what a balance is. Another thing, what else do we want to get back to control variables? I shouldn't be putting that in control variables. They're not control variables. That's just measuring the mass. The other thing we probably want to make sure of is that we've got to keep the same starting temperature. You don't want to do part of the experiment on a cold day, part of the experiment on a hot day. We're going to get a different final temperature because of just where the heat from the room is helping. And I think another thing that looks like it's a good idea to do is to keep mixing. This is just going to enable the reaction to happen more easily. So that will spread around that one. Whereas in one, if you mix it, another one you didn't, the one day you're mixing it would probably cause the temperature to increase. So really, actually saying all of these things and you did it in an organized way, that would in fact give you all 6 marks in this case. So I've not actually used anything from that's like any sort of knowledge to do with this one here. I just thought about the fact that I want to change the mass, or how would I change the mass? I'm going to measure the temperature, to think about how I would do that, and then thinking about other things that I would keep the same, and how and then really putting it all together in an organized way that would give me 6 marks. Okay.